guess what? The war is over. Something that you've always known as a child. Explaining that takes a while. It's a built-in looking glass, remember? But the war is over. We won. You just, certain things that, when you follow your intuition, you just know things. It's called self-knowledge, or a spiritual term that they use is called gnosis. Things that you know. That's why throughout a lot of my life, when I'm very deliberate about the way that I, how do I put this, convey myself, particularly when I was in my teenage years more than my adult years, and that is that when you know things because you're running on divine cosmic light, which is what love is in living spirit, and you already sort of know how programming works, right? And you're in a spiritual war between lower frequency, higher frequency, and all that. It becomes an insult when we interface with beings, if you will, that are on a lower frequency dimensional scale, if you will, in which they believe in things that you know is totally false. And that naturally is going to produce a dilemma for us, because we don't want to get into conflicts because we're in a state of peace. Okay? So you have to decide how you're going to react. The same way that you take a Bic lighter and ignite a gas. Right? Are we inert? Right? No movement? Or are we going to communicate back what our response is, and what is that response going to be? Because ultimately you want to keep and maintain your harmony. Because you're in peace, love, harmony, and balance with Source and everything else that is, that we give love to, which is everything that is living. Because anytime we experience a loss in what we are, is a loss in what they are. So we experience the loss in the energy in a bidirectional, holographic, hyperdimensional cosmos. See? So I knew when I followed the prompts, my intuition, it was leading me here and there and to this being and to that being, and why all the information was coming to me at the precise moment on what's called an event. When you have a thought, that's an event. When you have a feeling, that's an event. And you can measure the speed of the event based on the speed of the measure of the communication, which is what you're experiencing. You're experiencing the communication, which is the signal, which is the event. So you know when you are what love is in living spirit, you already know that you're an eternal being. Because eternal divine light is what love is, which is the energy that we use to be who we are, which is the same energy that we use to create the cosmos with, right? Okay? So then you know as a child we need to raise the light in the planet, because if I'm going places and I'm not experiencing what love is everywhere that I go, something's wrong. Something is seriously wrong. Okay, so when you're a child, you know what you are, but you're experiencing something that is different than what you are because they're running lower energy. So there has to be some underlying causality that explains why that is. So that becomes an investigative process, right? Putting a puzzle together, because you know who you are, but who the hell is the rest of everybody else that is here that's running all the different frequencies in which they do? And of course you can measure that as the coursework of evolution for the different beings that are here. And then of course you can throw in what an android is. You know, everybody I pretty much figure, particularly children, know who Data is on Star Trek, right? An android. Okay? So when you sort of put all this information into the hopper, it becomes pretty easy to know that you live in a big universe. Okay? And we've been around for a long time. So when you realize how fast, for example, as I mentioned before, if you want to start with a wagon wheel, how fast can you go from a wagon wheel to a mothership with 4 holodecks on it. You're only limited by what you experience, by the amount of imagination you have to experience how much is possible to experience using your infinite imagination with cosmic divine light of what love is. There is no limit. So when you realize there is no time, then that means everything is possible. So when you start with that as a child as your perception, then you can imagine what it's like perceiving how others perceive the reality that they live in, which is a hell realm. So that's why when I was here, I'm going, listen, I don't want to be here having to experience everybody else's hell realm. Because that's what they're experiencing, because that's the energy in their psychic consciousness that they're giving consent to experiencing without realizing that they really do have a choice over the reality that they want to experience, but their mind is held captive to lower frequency density experiences, which becomes a hell realm reality. How's that possible? A lot of that is obviously genetics. And then that's when you get into all their communication technology. All their transmitters, the ones they had on the moon, the one they had tuned over in Saturn. Antennas that I know that they had over in, I think it was the South China Sea, somewhere right around in there. It was beaming, if you will, low frequency energy. They know how to use different frequencies using transmitters in which we experience what that is. It isn't what we are. So they're choosing what it is we experience through us as a result of their communication technology. So when you know that as a child, it's like having a firewall. Everybody knows what a firewall is in a computer, because you don't want to start putting corrupted garbage information, language, into your computer, if you will, that's got a membrane, right? Memory and a chip, which is recording your DNA, which is the record of what you experience while you're here. See? And sound and light. So we got a sound recording. Okay? So, I wanted to sort of leave everyone, for those that watch this, okay, and that is I got sent a little blurb that apparently was autographed by President Trump, Donald J. Trump, where he was essentially communicating to those that read what he said that he was making an apology, and he was actually making an apology to everybody on the planet. Okay? Of all the crimes that had been committed on this planet against Homo sentient sapiens, and actually everybody that's here, okay, through, how do I put it, the war machine complex of the United States of America. It was primarily run through the CIA and the NSA, run by Nazis, Draco, Anunnaki, tall whites, grays, and of course, Archons. Your corporations. That's why, as I may have mentioned in a previous video about my clan mother, Karen Ann Luke MacDonald, that went after the Queen of the Dracos, which was Queen of England. Okay? Your monarchs. And of course, this ties directly into what I mentioned before in previous videos. For those that have the time and want to have do their own research to research history, there's one website called the Goodly News, but you can get it on Facebook through Karen Ann MacDonald. She has a lot of links up, what's called MUSA, M-U-S-A, and a guy who was a legal scholar, who was a Lakota, which is another fellow brother and tribe and clan, named Meredith Quinn, who laid down all of essentially the history between, in this particular case, the 13 original clans and the tribes, which means a native spirit, to this planet, which means this is our home world, okay? So my spirit is anchored to the girl spirit on the planet, known as Gaia, which is the goddess of humanity, okay? She's the one who put my DNA assembly together. This is one of her avatars that my spirit communicates to you in, okay? And so when you put together everything that sort of happened here in the galactic history of this planet, and you know its history, how we come to be this point in time, it becomes helpful to sort of put all the pieces together, which represent the underlying causality of why we experience everything that we all experience together on this planet that doesn't serve us. And that's obvious when you begin to collect and measure all the data that represents the quality of the air that we breathe, the quality of the water that we drink, the quality of the soil we use to grow food on, and the very nature of the relationships that we have between everybody that's here on this planet. Okay? Particularly when you realize technologies, if you will, med beds, all the things that were denied to us that have been around for actually billions of years, that are used by very advanced ET civilizations that they've had for millions and millions of years, that weren't allowed to come out here, because what do you expect when you have beings who are 2D, okay, running a planet that normally runs 5D, or in this case, 3D classroom? You sort of put that into the hopper, right? And so when people realize, really, the way I described it to somebody is, and this is no offense to a caveman, because there were cavemen, or the Neanderthals, if you will, that basically beat up the Dracos and vamoosed out of here. I believe it was the Neanderthals, although I know there are some left because I met one on the Big Island, okay, who were bigger and stronger, okay, than a Draco, to beat them up and leave. And they escaped out one of the gates. That's my understanding from Patty Broussard. But the bottom line is essentially this, is that when I read that little blurb that the lady from the Netherlands sent me about an apology that President Trump is going to essentially make to the planet, it's over. Okay? So, that's very good news. Okay? Future proves past. So apparently I got a little message that he's going to hold a town hall meeting tonight at the White House. So it's going to be interesting because, let's face it, the hard drive was like the coup de grace on them, which means, when you get President Trump, essentially before he gets on Air Force One, telling the media, listen, you're all criminals, supporting other criminals. Okay, as he'd been saying all the time, fake news media, fake news media. You begin to realize that why would as they're called, the left, okay? How is it that people just can't seem to put this together? Okay? Even though it's so obvious, right? You can't understand that until you begin to realize why, or the underlying causality of what it means to program somebody. Okay, all you got to do is, you can do that if you've ever worked in computing. I happened to work at one time when I was working my way through my teenage years. I went to work at a place called Collins Radio, which was bought out by Rockwell International, which was making chips that put in calculators and watches. So they put me through a 2-week training course about CMOS, programming language, a Perkin-Elmer machine that essentially takes a microscopic circuit, okay, prints it onto a silicon disk. We got silica in us. So when you begin to realize how circuit boards work, chips work, memory works, and you begin to sort of perceive how that works in a holographic way, if you will, in which technology, information science is technology, communication science, using your consciousness to merge yourself into a machine, essentially. So when our higher state of consciousness is using a machine, which is what the light is, in which all that data is held, we can use it as a tool. But we don't allow electronic toastmasters or toasters to control our state of consciousness, right? And so that's why I realize that when I'm dealing with artificial intelligence, it's parasitic. This is a sensor on my phone or a laptop. and you begin to realize, oh, I got to have it back. I can't do without this thing, right? This is a real good test to measure yourself, by the way, because I measured myself that way when I had a cell phone that I lost on purpose, okay? I was supposed to do that to gain a frame of reference. I know it's crazy how this might work, but this is like my future self trying to teach my now time self that through this experience, you're going to learn the freedom that you have without using that technology. And of course, I had that experience throughout my entire life on what we choose to be held captive by. Like getting an email that says, urgent. Oh, I guess I better put my consciousness into whoever's sending me that. And all of a sudden, my consciousness is held captive by a word that says urgent. That's how it works. You know, how other things are trying to capture your attention. Its state of consciousness, to put the message there, see? It's always about capture, attachment. Can't leave you alone. Can't leave you alone using that communication technology. So what happened is when I lost that phone, I wasn't for some reason, okay, in the past when that happened, I got to get my phone. All right? Hey, I'm held captive by that technology. I can't do without that phone. And then this last time I was teaching myself a lesson. Listen, you don't want to be held captive by anything, do you? No. You're a free spirit. You're not the machine. You're not a ghost in a machine. You're a free spirit. Your state of consciousness is always free to be who you are and experience whatever you want with your conscious, creative mind. Okay, so in this particular case, I wasn't in a hurry to go get another replacement, and I didn't for almost 4 days. And the next thing you know is I realized, hey, I'm pretty comfortable without that phone. I don't need that phone anymore. I'm perfectly happy. Remember, I already got everything I need. I don't need that phone to be happy. That's not where happiness comes from. Love and joy comes from then your own heart and soul, doesn't it? That's right. Now you're an autonomous unit. You got all the energy that you need, so I don't need that cell phone. Hell, when I was a kid growing up, remember this is how we used to learn about communications when I was a little scout. I was a Cub Scout and then a Boy Scout. We used to take what's called tin cans, and then they used to run a string between can to can. We built tree forts so that we could communicate between each other using tin cans and string. We could do that. Same way they used to have what we called rabbit ears on the first TVs that were coming out. Hey, the reception's not very good. Hold on to a broken antenna. Whoa, look at the reception. You begin to realize you're a transceiver. Hey, I'm a ham radio set. So you learn these things as you go, huh? So when you don't want to be held captive by something that's trying to control you, let go of it. And what happens? You lose density. You lose mass density. That's why we don't allow ourselves to be held captive by anything. That allows you to go faster. Now when you're broadcasting all that divine light, because you're lit up like an 8-day clock because you're running a hot furnace, now you're burning indigo colors. Right? Yeah. That's what it means to be free. Now you can move throughout all the stargates. Now you're free to experience everything else that is out there. Okay? That's what perception vibration is. Higher density consciousness. You're free. So when I saw that little blurb, I realized, okay, it's over. Checkmate on the chessboard. So, you know, when I saw the prison over the planet, it's called a prison, you know, when you understand how energy moves hyperdimensionally through gates, stargates, if you will, that if they don't have the holographic perception of being able to perceive how the spin and the rotation of cosmic sound and light moves through all the hyperdimensions, if they're not able to perceive things on that level with that much light with their DNA, they can't get through. They can't get through a stargate and go into the higher hyperdimensions. They can't do that. So that's why the only way that they could get through that fence, through hyperdimensional geometric space, is by running love and light. So that's why when Patty said to us, there isn't anything getting in and out of this planet but love and light, then you knew it's over. They're trapped. All the demons are trapped. They got no escape hatch. So now that all the light is in here, everything's been exposed, huh? That's right. We exposed all their shit. That means that those that are asleep are not going to be able to escape the truth any longer. So now we're going to wait to see what that reaction is going to be. So that reaction had to be measured across the planet as the events unfolded. There had to be a sufficient amount of light in here to be able to handle the reverberation, the reactions, so that the light can absorb it, okay? Which, remember when I said the more fear that they keep throwing at us, the more love we give back. And that will help dissolve all of the trauma and the fear-based experiences of lower density consciousness they were held captive by, to let go. It's okay. We're all here. We love you, okay? We love you. You have no idea how much we love you. I could cry tears of joy just knowing what I know right now. That you're no longer going to be held captive by these demons. That's the truth of it. Okay? So relax. The light won. Okay? That's the good news for today and forever, because love goes on forever, doesn't it? Yep. That's divine light. All the divine light is in here right now. Okay? So enjoy the day. I suppose if I was to put a finer point on this, we do this for our children, don't we? You're darn right we do. Because they're the future. We have to secure their future. One that represents what love is. That's why we do what we do. We defend and protect all life on this planet. So we defend and protect our children with love. That's a powerful magnetic light bulb. Anyway, with that, have a great day. I love you all. Be good to yourselves.